Evaluating expressions, lesson B, example number 7, continue. I had asked you to do C and E, not D and F, so you can ignore that for now, but I asked you to do C and E. So let's start with C. I already went ahead and wherever I saw a variable, I put parentheses and I plugged our values in. Negative A was substituted in for, negative 9 substituted in for A and negative 5 in for B. So I'm going to start with my multiplication. 3 times negative 9. 3 times 9 is 27. There's one negative, so it'd be negative 27. 1 times 5 is 5. And because there are two negatives, an even amount of negatives means that 5 will be positive. Last step, combine these numbers. The signs are the same, they are different. So I'm going to subtract. 27 minus 5 is 22. And the sign of the larger number is negative. So my final answer for C is negative 22. If you did not get yours correct, pause your video and fix yours. For E, again, I already put the parentheses where I saw the variables, and I plugged the values in for the variables. So negative 10 substituted in for R, and negative 4 in for S. So I'm going to start with my multiplication. 1 times 10 is 10. Now, that's negative 1 times negative 10. And negative 1 times anything means you take the opposite. So the opposite of negative 10 is positive 10. Or you could look at it as there's an even amount of negatives, so it'd be a positive 10. 8 times 4 is 32. In this case, that's a positive 8 and a negative 4. There's one negative, so this would be a negative 32. Now I combine these numbers. Those signs are different, so I'm going to subtract. 32 minus 10 is 22, and 32 is the larger number, so it's going to be negative 22. So again, check your work, see if yours is correct. If not, you can go ahead and fix it. Okay, for D and F, notice how there's an extra, or there's already a set of parentheses with another negative 1 out front. Well, what I did was, in place of these parentheses, I put brackets, because for the variables on the inside, I'm going to be putting parentheses. So the parentheses that's in the original problem, I used brackets. And then I put parentheses for the variables inside the brackets. Same steps, it's just there's going to be one more step. We still have to follow our order of operations. Order of operations means I need to do what's inside the grouping symbols first. So I have to do what is inside here first, because those brackets are a grouping symbol. Well, inside that grouping symbol, I have this multiplication and I have this multiplication. So the negative 1 on the outside will still be negative 1. Once I multiply, I won't have parentheses anymore, so I'm going to change my brackets back to parentheses. 1 times 4 is 4. There's two negatives, so an even amount of negatives means it's going to be a positive 4. 2 times 2 is 4. Now I've got an odd amount of negatives because I got a positive 2 and a negative 2. Odd amount of negatives means that's a negative 4. Close my parentheses. And again, following my order of operations, I need to do what's inside the parentheses first. Well, 4 minus 4 is 0. So I'm going to bring down the negative 1. 4 minus 4 is 0. And now my last step is to finish by doing this multiplication right here. Well, 0 times anything is 0. So this problem, it wasn't really a whole lot different than the problem we did in A, B, C, or E. It's just there was that one more step because there was an extra negative that we needed to take care of, which means it was an extra negative 1. And remember, when you multiply by negative 1, you're doing the opposite. The only thing is for this problem, well, I was multiplying 0 by negative 1, and there is no such thing as the opposite of 0, because 0 is neither positive nor negative. All right. F is just like D. So I'm going to go through and follow those same steps. So I'm going to start with inside. Now, I want you to recognize an F. Notice how in D I use brackets, in F I use parentheses. It's the same thing. It really doesn't matter. If you use the yellow calculators we have in class, there aren't brackets there, so you use parentheses. And the next time you use one of those yellow calculators, watch how the parentheses will get larger the more you have. So the outside parentheses larger than the one inside of it, and which is what I did. Notice how this outside parenthesis is larger than the inside parentheses. So I wouldn't care how you did it. You could use the parentheses or the brackets. It doesn't matter to me. All right, so I'm going to start by doing what's inside the big set of parentheses. So I need to do this multiplication here and this multiplication here. So I'm going to bring down my -1, bring down the parentheses. 2 times 9 is 18. There are two negatives, so it's positive 18. 1 times 4 is 4. There are two negatives, so it's positive 4. Close my parentheses. Do what's inside the parentheses still. Follow our order of operations. So bring down the -1. I still need to keep the parentheses because that -1 beside the parentheses means multiplication, so I need the parentheses to show multiplication. 8 plus 4 is 22. Last step is to multiply. 1 times 22 is 22, and because there's one negative, it would be -22. Or in other words, the opposite, because multiplying by -1 is the same thing as taking the opposite. The opposite of positive 22 is -22. All right, that is it for example 7, and it is it for the evaluating expressions notes. If you have any questions on example 7 or the notes, please let me know.